Hello and welcome to week 17 of the FUT Weekly podcast. This is a content pod and delighted to welcome back and say a happy new year to Japes. Hello, how are we doing?
Hey Ben, happy new year. Excited to be back and not be living in like a COVID fog or haze that was the past, week or so. Took the whole Japes household down, but everybody is back to close to full steam at this point. And so, as we cruise on ahead towards Team of the Year and Ultimate Team, I figure the rest of 2023 has got to be better for the Japes clan.
Yeah, not the way you want to start, but we had last week filling in Josh, and he's back as well. Welcome to the pod again, SpreadsheetFIFA.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Slightly tired this morning after an incredible night of American hand egg last night. It was the last fixtures in the regular season. It was there was lots on the line.
Did you stay up through the Packers game?
I did, yes.
Wow, that's kind of
it was tough to stay awake in the middle of the third quarter because that was a low quality game. Aaron Rodgers has lost it, unfortunately.
Having grown up a Packers fan with my mom's side of the family, all from Wisconsin, Rodgers' decline is painful.
It's going to be an interesting step away. I don't know if he's announced his retirement, but it feels like it's coming for sure.
I have no idea. I should probably know what's going on by now, living in the US for a few months, but I don't. So we'll move swiftly on to something I do know about, which is unfortunate. But Barnsley going out of the FA Cup. I'm sorry about that, Richard Buckley. But it's nice to have you on the podcast anyway.
Well, you had one person on your side who didn't have a clue, but now you just ruined that friendship as well. So, yeah, great to be back on the podcast. Out of the FA Cup, but still in a promotion hunt for the playoffs, Barnsley FC. And so that's all that matters.
Is it really a good thing? I mean, that's sometimes what people say when
why not? We'll go with that. We'll spin that. We'll spin that narrative.
Well, let's move on to the first thing, as we often do, pound for pound powerhouse. But I think this is going to cause a bit more discussion than it normally does. We might go on a bit of a tangent. Basically, one of the nominations was for Douglas Luiz, the inform from 𝗵, because he went from a 78 to an 87, which is, as 𝗵 says, similar to a big promo boost. He got 87 reactions, 92 composure, excellent passing stats, decent pace and defending, as 𝗵 says. And if you disregard his shooting, he's 80 plus in every stat bar 6, playing alongside 𝘵𝘃𝘬, and he's excellent as a more defensive box-to-box, but can sling in the odd long shot too. Bonus points for having blonde hair in-game and being easy to spot on the pitch, which is always helpful. And then he actually followed up with this question, which we'll probably break up pound for pound with. He said, would be good to get people's thoughts on the new Team of the Week boosting system, which I'm not sure if EA have spelled out or if it's semi-random as to what the upgrades will look like. Does it also make Want to Watch more attractive, potentially, too, if they have the chance to get a double boost? And actually, I should say it's not just the double boost, but there's an extra featured Team of the Week in each Team of the Week, I believe, too. I was wondering that, Josh. I don't think they were too specific about it, right? Certain overalls will get a bigger upgrade.
Well, it looks like I saw a lot of people saying they're just giving double boosts, which isn't technically true. It does get true as the higher up you get, but it seems like they've essentially bumped up the boost that cards get due to their rating. So the inform system has always been on a strict, if your card is this rating and you get an inform, you go to this rating on your inform. And it seems like they've kind of moved that up much further. Like, I think you're getting like +8s now when you're kind of 75 rated, which is a massive boost, because what it then means is your second inform is then going to be like an 86, 87 rated card that's hyper usable. So it seems like it's going to just be a pretty uniform boost across the board now. And they've just got a new system that they're using, which for me is brilliant, because so much of the issues that we get with promos and rewards being lackluster is because it was based off the Team of the Week system, which kind of feels outdated in the current era of so many promos with massively boosted cards. And as you say, with ones to watch, if we get headliners, for example, it would be massive for that too. I actually think this probably means we won't get headliners now, because it would be way too overpowered. But yeah, the kind of, even somebody like, you go to 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 getting a +2 boost, even though he already had an 88 rated player in the game, the fact that those higher rated cards are still getting an extra ratings boost is going to be massive for just giving us way more usable players, especially those lower league players that usually are like 80 rated informs that nobody looks at.
Yeah. And also they still use this algorithmic boost for Team of the Week players, which is sort of a set formula that they've had for a long time, which is quite interesting because it creates some really overpowered elements to cards sometimes, which you don't get through their non-standard upgrade system, where they make sure that the power curve's nice and balanced by, making a player's reactions lower, for example, or just kind of tweaking it to keep them in line. You'll actually potentially see some quite funky looking stats because of this. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think it will spice things up quite a bit. And actually tying into that, Richard, you may have seen that there's been some champs reward changes. Have you had a look? Are you enjoying that already? Did that go well for you this weekend?
No, not really. As always, champs rewards never seem to reward, but I think it adds more sort of any element to get more out of the games that you're playing is always good. I think with the inform, just to tag on the back of that, it could rejuvenate a little bit of the want-to-watchers as well. Like, if we are going to see these crazy boosts and these huge upgrades, it could have a knock-on effect of the want-to-watch market / interest in those players could be heightened a little bit, because realistically, want-to-watch, as soon as the first promo post want-to-watch comes out, want-to-watch seems to take a dive, unless you're Erling Haaland, in which it takes a dive probably like mid-December. So I think that could be relatively interesting as well, with the seemingly like incredible boost that a lot of the Team of the Week items are getting.
Yeah, and the other thing that they have thrown into the mix to improve champs rewards is that you're getting these extra picks. While previously it may have been tempting to stop at 11, there's a bit more of a motivator to kick on to 14, because 11 gives you 2 lots of picks, which are between 2 AC4 plus rated players, whereas 14 gives you 3 picks between 3 players AC4 plus. So is that something that might be encouraging you, Josh, to push on from 11, do you think?
What I really want is the most enjoyable experience I can get out of it. And the sweat from 11 to 14 for a kind of mid-ability player who plays champs, which is somebody like myself, is like those 11 to 14. It's amazing how much more stressful your week is when you start off going, I'm going to get 14 wins. Rather than, if you're in a tough game or you get a couple of bad breaks, you can just go, all right, we'll move on to the next one. It doesn't really matter. But just in general, I think it's really nice, both in the Team of the Week side of things, but also in the champ side of things, to slowly improve stuff. Because I think one of the issues we've always had as a power curve has happened, or as a year's gone on, is that the rewards don't change. And so it kind of, the ability to kind of really grow your team quickly at the beginning of the year falls off massively as time goes on, because how many ultimate packs do you get where you go, that was amazing, I've made so many coins from that. Whereas actually giving us those extra picks, even if they are untradeable, you're going to get decent fodder to go into SBCs to, reinvest in your team. And I like it. I worry slightly that maybe it's another step towards the path of a fully untradeable game. But I definitely think it's been a massive boost. And especially in that 16, 18, 19, definitely around the 18, 19 wins, it kind of makes a nice little change for the people that really, really play the game to a hard extent. I think it's a bigger thing for people who were getting 6 wins and checking out. It's worth going to 9 now to just get that extra pick and get that extra kind of next thing. Yeah, 11 to 14. But I think if I'm 11-2 or 11-3, then we'll go for it. But otherwise, I'm just going to stick with my 11 for now.
Yeah, I was also going to add, actually, I don't think I made this clear, but for those who didn't have a look at this, you're also still getting the same red picks as previously, and that's important to note.
Yes.
And obviously with an improved Team of the Week, that makes them more exciting. And I guess even that alone may have made a bit of a difference, but you've got these extra fodder picks in there too. Japes, I know you don't play for rewards, you often say that, but has this made you think about, I don't know, playing a bit further on in champs or anything like that?
It will not impact my decision making about how much, like, the amount of FUT Champs that I play. It's never, I think, going to be the case for me again. Maybe the only thing that it would be more so if I was like on a tear and like 16-0, I would be playing to try to get a 20-0, because that feels like I've like pushed myself to achieve something that I don't achieve that often. That said, I wrote maybe a month ago now in Snacks, or in my P2P Snacks, which is my newsletter. And I talked about how they need to keep the World Cup red pick system and how Team of the Week needs to be changed because it's kind of useless the way it's set up as. So they need to do like one of those two things at least to have champs stay relevant going forward in 2023. And they did both. So I'm like absolutely like over the moon with that, because that's new behavior from EA. That is not the like tried and true. This is what was planned for the cycle. You know, I don't know, but maybe it was planned that after the World Cup system, they said, yeah, we're going to have to adjust accordingly. I'd like to think that they are more willing to try things on the fly now based on how they've behaved in like, especially in the summers in previous years, trying to tweak the system, try some new things. But that Douglas Luiz card is a perfect example. It's like, how irrelevant would that card have been? And now you've got somebody being like, yeah, that could be pound for pound. Like what? Also, it makes SBCs far more achievable for people, which I think is going to keep people engaged far more, because even if you are treating these cards as fodder or red picks, what an 87 rated team means might be a little bit easier now. Now, that said, they're not going to boost the base gold ratings. And so, you know, you might see SBCs just actually creep in expense level as well, which would be a bit of a bummer, but, you know, that tends to happen as the year goes on.
Yeah, something I wanted to move on to actually in terms of this topic is champs, because it feels like they've really made some changes here to encourage people to play it, but they've also been giving out points, haven't they, over the last few weeks, so that you can enter playoffs without having to grind those points. And that got me thinking, it's been a while since the new system was introduced with playoffs and finals. Since then, it's probably suffered from a bit of a lack of competitive edge, perhaps. I mean, it's still competitive in many ways, but for some people, there hasn't been that drive to improve, I'd say. And potentially, they could, it's fair to say, EA be accused of shifting focus away with other things, where actually I quite like champs being the pinnacle. And I was just interested to know what you three thought about that. Japes, do you want to come in first?
Yeah, so once upon a time, champs was like the competitive mode. And it was clear that if you did really, really well in champs, like you could get your name out there as a competitive FIFA player, theoretically. It was like the aspirational game mode. Like Rivals was what Rivals was, but champs was this is your like the aspirational. You want to be great. You want to show off your skills. You do it in FUT Champs. You get 30 wins or whatever. Nobody, like, there's in some ways like no disputing it. The current system with Rivals is a better system for measuring who's good at the game or who's bad at the game, right? Because random things can happen over the course of 20 or 30 games. But if you can stay at consistently high level in Rivals, at least to me, that is going to showcase a higher level of skill because you're consistently beating opponents at or above your skill level to move up. The mode has shifted now into kind of a icing rewards mode for most parts. Like, I like going in there because I think it's a fun mode. It's the most rewarding mode you can play during that period of time. Like, if you've already gotten your Rivals wins, certainly, but also even if you haven't, like, champs is extremely rewarding in terms of moving your team forward. And I think it's treated as such for a lot of people. And the reason I think you see a drop off of 6 wins, 11 wins and out is because people are looking at their teams now and saying, how much is this champs actually going to improve my team? Like, who am I going to change out? I've got a bunch of heroes. I got a bunch of icons that I really like. There's nobody new out there that I need to go after. I bet you would see an uptick in champs if they released like an insane SBC, throwback SBC, right? Or put like a 𝘵𝘬𝗏 SBC up there that people needed to like really go out and grind towards. Until that happens, it's treated as a way to improve your team, and people don't really need major improvements.
I think there's another side that I look at this at, which is that at the end of the day, like, what you go into a game for is different for everybody. Some people want to go into a game to be the best they can be at it. Some people want to go into a game to show off to their friends. Some people are just looking for a bit of fun. And I feel like the champs mode, or the funneling of a lot of the gameplay towards champs mode, made the game in general slightly less fun. I think it gave rise to more toxicity and more of a kind of ag in the community over quitting at 0-0 and all of those sorts of things. What's weird about this year for me is that because we've now got skill-based matchmaking in friendlies, champs is the most enjoyable game mode for me this year, because it's a simpler matchmaking system where I tend to get more quote-unquote easy games. And actually, I tend to check out at 9-11 wins, even if I could win further, because the games are harder and I'm not looking for a kind of stressful experience. I just want to have a bit of fun. And I think the problem that champs has always had, and the problem that the move towards it being an esport has been, that it's lost an element of that just going in to have a bit of fun. I'm sure there are people that can still find it, but I know for a lot of people, the fun element of FIFA got lost a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I know a lot of people who are very good or strong-ish players or above average players really enjoyed the daily knockout tournament, because there was this big variety of quality of play you play, and it would get increasingly difficult. And I guess champs is probably the closest thing we have to that now, because of the way matchmaking works, and that you work your way up, and obviously playoffs as well, even more so. So I can see the logic there, and I certainly agree that it is fun to play a variety of opponents of different skill levels. And if I just played friendlies and rivals where I'm playing elite division players, I probably would be almost questioning my ability, because you never really get to see beyond that and realize you're actually a player who's up towards the top of the skill, I don't know, pyramid, because you're just playing people who are really, really good all the time. And as you say, friendlies seems tighter. It's always been skill-based, I think, but it feels tighter this year in terms of the matchmaking than previously. I don't know whether that's because they can do it now with crossplay, perhaps, but that seems to be the case. And so, yeah, that is something that's almost good about champs this year, but it isn't really what it was meant to be, I guess. But yeah, Richard, what about you? Because I know you're somebody who really enjoys the kind of competitive winning element of the game.
I suppose I just look at it differently. Like, the thrill I get out of FIFA is winning games. Like, if I know I've matched someone who's really good and I beat that person, I get more of a buzz out of that, rather than, I don't know, completing an objective or doing, like, my main aim of when I turn this game on is to win. And I suppose that's just, as Josh said earlier, everyone has different things that they want to get out of the game.
Yeah. And I actually, enjoy champs, because one of the things that I really enjoy is winning games, yes, and being competitive. But I do like to try and do it in a way that I enjoy. And I think champs gives me the opportunity to do that over a kind of stretch of games where you're going to be playing different opponents with different play styles, where in rivals at the top end, it can be pretty samey. And in friendlies, people are playing
super repetitive.
Yeah. In friendlies, people are playing to complete specific objectives. So there's always kind of that dynamic there, rather than playing football for football's sake, So I think that's why I enjoy it. And actually why I'd encourage people who maybe don't dip into it to dip into it. The rewards are good. And I think the biggest thing for me is actually the like cash rewards are good, because you've got informs and you've got coins and the packs are tradable. If you stick to other modes, and if you take, untradeable rivals rewards, you can end up being so untradeable that you don't have the opportunity to go out and try players. And there are plenty of players, especially at the moment, who are like a few 100k or 600k even, who'd really improve your team, I think. And you're not going to be able to get to those if you just stick to untradables. You're relying on some pack luck, really, or SBCs, which are very carefully positioned to not be ultra strong unless they're really expensive. So, yeah. And actually, I was going to ask, I know we talked about this last week, Josh, but in terms of Gerrard, Jairzinho, Zidane, either of you considering those, Richard?
Zidane, I think I'm locked in on.
Oh, yeah.
I think during Team of the Year, I'll amount enough stuff to be able to do him. And I just think he's a very, very high-level icon that we've already had the alternative version for. We've had the World Cup version, so we're not getting another version of Zidane throughout the cycle. I know that I'm not going to get sort of like duped out of it, and there's going to be an even better Zidane coming out that is then going to knock down the price of the 95 and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I'm locked in. I'm locked in on 94 Zidane.
Yeah. I've played against him a few times, and he's a pain to play against. So I feel like he's a good bet. And Japes, what about you?
Yeah, so I looked at Zidane and I thought to myself, like, this is the exact type of player that I would love in my more like attacking midfield spot. in a 4-3-3.
Mm.
And Richard's point absolutely stands. I found myself wondering, though, like, I took a look at his stats, and I don't love that he's medium. I just can't seem to get on with that this year. He is, 500K cheaper than his 95 and 1,000,000 coins cheaper than his 96. And looking at the 95 especially, I think is the one where I found myself thinking like, are those stats worth like 500,000 coins more? Like the answer is probably no. And so I think he's a safe bet if you're in for it, because none of his work rates aren't going to change either. He's just medium, 5-star, 5-star across the board. So he is really safe. 𝗬𝘰𝗬𝘦, I get really annoyed playing against him. I think he's kind of obnoxious. I don't know why. It's just because he's like so strong for what he is. I think that's really what it is. His like strength stat combined with his dribbling is quite good. I also think that his like prime version, I'm not convinced it's like that much better. He's just one of those where, like, that said, I think you're just going to want to use a variety of different attackers as the game goes on, and committing that many coins to him, that many coins to a Brazilian attacker not named Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, or Pelé feels bad. And I'm speaking from having gotten like a mid-𝘰𝗀𝘀 years prior and being like, gosh, he's great. And then hitting February and being like, he's like kind of hard to want to fit in now. That said, I think 𝗬𝘰𝗬𝘦 is like right on the curve right now. Perhaps even was like a little bit ahead of it and would be good for a long amount of time. And so if you can get, 1,000,000 coins worth of enjoyment out of him, by all means, like go forth and be happy. But
the fact is, if your alternative is gamble packs every week, they are better than that. Like, that has to be said, especially with Team of the Year coming. If people are saving packs with minimum ratings, all that kind of thing, I think I can see why people, would be doing these. I would like to now move us to some cheaper players, and particularly pound for pound powerhouses. We started with informed Douglas Luiz, who is only 20k, so that's very cheap. I don't know whether there's anyone out there that people want to put forward. I guess we'd start with you, Richard. Is there anyone out there at the moment?
So I've got one, and he's about 200k. So he's not super cheap, but in the current market, it's not ridiculous. And he is a FUT Centurion. He is Mr. Trent Alexander-Arnold. I used him quite a bit. I think I got 17, 18 games out of him. I really, really like him. I'm a big fan of fullbacks who can pass.
And he really can pass, can't he?
Yeah, I mean, his ability on the ball is incredible. He's quick. He's got really good dribbling as well. So in those tight areas at fullback, he can sort of wriggle out. He can switch the play nicely. And he's sort of like not necessarily pre-investment. I wouldn't say that as such. I'm not giving financial advice, but I think that Team of the Year, there's going to be a couple, maybe 3 or 4 Prem players in there. And he could be that fullback to sort of, just to give you a little bit at right back, because right back's also one of those positions in FIFA where we don't have huge amount of players. Obviously, we got 𝗪𝗓𝘃 if you did that during wildcards, but there's a lot of players who have been released, maybe missing a stat here or there. I think he's just really, really well-rounded. I'm also just a big fan of Trent as well. I like him in real life, so it sort of adds to it. And he's got giant throw-in, so if you do need a late goal, you just launch it into the box. I think he got like 4 new traits as well, which was quite nice.
Yeah, we're going to talk about new traits on the gameplay pod, so I'll leave it for that. But yeah, it's been interesting to see what's gone on around the traits recently. As a pro clubs player yourself, Richard, I'm sure you'll recognise a few as well, because many of them have never been in FUT before, but have been in pro clubs for a while. So we'll talk about that on the gameplay pod. But yeah, a good nomination. And actually, this demonstrates how good value your nomination last week was, Josh, in 𝗪𝗃𝘃, right?
For 2 tokens, I just felt like it was, whilst it's not like a player that you could purchase or an SBC, he was like, I felt like it was a mistake. It just felt like a really, really good level. He isn't going to be an end game player, but he's also not really going to let you down. Like, maybe his agility, maybe his strength's a little bit low, but I watched somebody score like 7 or 8 unbelievable long shots with him because he's got that 89 shot power, and with that flick up power shot, he's ridiculous.
Do you know, I wanted to apologise actually, because when I put out the vote for pound for pound, I accidentally put in Felix, you reviewed on the gameplay pod rather than him. So an official apology from me because the player that I nominated then won. So it looks like a fix, but I promise it wasn't.
Yeah, and I can promise you it was.
Well, I mean, I think I'm probably a deserving winner, but 𝗏𝗃𝗃 could have won for sure. So I promise you, Josh, I won't be making the same mistake this week. Who are you going to nominate?
So I'm stuck. I was going to riff off of Richard's traits thing and maybe go for that 𝘵𝗱𝗃𝗁𝘀 because that's a hilarious card.
He got all of them, didn't he?
Yeah. The fact he had a scroll bar on his traits page was brilliant. However, I'm going to go for an inform, in keeping with the conversation we've had, and I'm going to go for a early FIFA 22 legend in Openda, who has now moved to Lens in France and has got, this is his second inform, and he went from an 81 to an 85. He's almost maxed out pace. He's 99 acceleration, 98 sprint speed. And I've seen like marksman and finisher kind of put forward as the best chem stars for him. And both of them just give him stats that a player that is 15k shouldn't really have. He is only 3-star, and that is going to kill a lot of people's kind of enjoyment of him. But he's high-low work rates, which is brilliant for an attacker. And if you put a finisher on him, he has 99 acceleration, 99 finishing, 99 agility, 99 dribbling, 99 jumping, and is kind of just a bit of an all-rounder. Like, even his passing is fairly solid for, again, a fairly cheap striker. I think he's 92 rated with a finisher if you kind of go off the stats that he has. And for what is pretty much a discard informal one that is at fodder price, I like him. Links to that 𝘵𝗍𝗍 SBC that we had as well. So yeah, that's my push forward for this one.
It's funny. So I actually got completely done by him in champs in the last 10 minutes of a game. I think I was winning by at least 2 goals, and he came on and scored a hat trick. It's an absolute nightmare. So I completely agree with you. It's a really good nomination. Well, let's move on to, I guess, Japes, your pound for pound nomination this week.
Yeah. Can I do 𝘰𝗍𝘀𝘁 winner wild card?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, been on for a bit. I'll let you know.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah, I am not serious about doing him as I'm like sort of serious. He's a baller, like truly baller, impact, like difference maker. You'll have a hard time getting him out of my midfield just because he's like surprisingly good going forward with a hawk, because it boosts his shot power up to 93 and his long shots up to 96. So he's like deceptively good at finishing. He's also got 94 base positioning then, with the chemistry style. He obviously has the insane 99 across the board dribbling stat, maybe 98 dribbling. There's one that's 98, which feels weird. Like, why did you do that?
Yeah, dribbling is 98, the rest are 99.
Yeah, which is super weird. So there's he's got short passing stats and vision stats, and he's great. And his base defensive stats are amazing. You give him the hawk, he's got 99 aggression, which is just mouth-watering, and 96 stamina. And he's like everywhere. He's tenacious. He feels like you would imagine Joshua Kimmich should feel. And he's playing my box-to-box LCM role because he's got high medium work rates, which they always give him, even though it feels like, well, if he was a right back, those would make sense, but he only plays right back in an emergency. And so he really should be more like a high work rate player, but EA consistently do that. But the best part is he allows me to take the World Cup Vieira and swap him back into the defense very, very easily. So that's my like low key, or not so low key, high key, pound for pound. But really, the card that I consistently, there are 2 cards here that I consistently bring off the bench, and I'm like, these cards are great. I don't know why I don't see them more often. Base FUT hero Thomas Brolin is jokes. He's jokes. And I've used his 89, and I see the boost difference. Like I visually see it. And the 89 is 400k more than him. And I got the base hero Brolin like out of one of the packs, and I bring him on now as my like more attacking oriented center mid. And he's so freaking good. He scores all the time for me. And I just don't understand, because of how versatile he can play so many different spots, I just don't understand why more people haven't. His stats are a lie. There's occasionally just a card where the like stats are purely just a lie. And his, I would say, is absolutely one of those. So he's won the Bruno 𝗵𝗫𝗀𝘀 card. The Path to Glory one is now down to like 200K, and he is as complete of a box-to-box midfielder as you can have. So I'm cheating Ben and doing what I want because, you know, I missed a week, so I feel like I got to sneak a few more in there, and that's how we go. Yeah, exactly. But those guys are truly, truly outstanding.
Yeah, I like that. And I'll quickly round off with the real best right back at Liverpool, which is obviously James Milner. Because I was looking at his card, and actually, he's like, 25K at the moment? And he has high defensive, medium attacking, which is great if you're playing him in a midfield pivot. But he's also got 86 defensive awareness and 95 aggression. And yes, he's not, the fastest, 78 pace, but having used slightly slower defensive midfield players, I think he'll be okay there. And he has 93 reactions and 90 composure too. He's got good enough short passing, 89, and long passing at 87. Obviously, his 91 crossing, a little bit wasted at CDM. But still, 95 interceptions with a shadow. And I think is someone that, because of his higher acceleration than sprint speed, he'll probably feel good enough, to chase down players. And I don't know, with the fact he's 5'8" and he's relatively physical, I think he's going to have a bit of a sort of 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 vibe. And I don't know, the idea of James Milner holding down your midfield is just kind of entertaining at this point when he's 37.
Yeah, so, if you're in like 2010, Ben.
I don't want to be that guy.
Barry Milner.
I don't want to be that guy on in-game stats, but he has the 28th most in-game stats of any player in the game.
Does he?
Yeah. He is 2 in-game stats behind
Can
Yaya
you name
Toure.
the other 27?
All right, it's Christmas quiz
flashbacks. But yeah, he's 2 behind the World Cup hero Yaya Toure.
There's a reason Yaya Toure's $1.5 million coins and James Milner's 25.
Yeah. To be fair, he does have 97 penalties, which is probably not super useful. But
yeah, that's not where you want to see the stats.
And 91 crossing, which is also probably not helping, as I said. So
I will say that you look at his card though, with his like 93 base reactions, Ben, I'm a fan. But if you were to put a hawk on him, like I very much enjoy doing as a box-to-box kind of like CM, you get their shot power, long shots up, and he's really like pretty well-rounded.
Yeah, 4-star too. So you can do some Bubba spins from the pivot
and
position.
He would allow you to place Vieira back in the defense where he belongs. Vieira has no job being a midfielder in this game. Also, side note, throwback to Christmas quiz. Oh, yeah. My wife made sausage rolls not too long back. Big fan.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, good.
We found one that was supposed to be traditional UK with some like American ingredients because you can't get some of the stuff. Big fan though. Nice. I can see why people like them at the turn when you're playing golf. I watched a 𝘵𝗫𝗄𝘀𝘀 video.
Everywhere he goes, he looks for one of those.
So what's the next UK-based baked good you should try then, Richard and Josh?
A steak bake.
Oh, I was going to be in there with a steak bake as well.
I guess a pasty is another similar thing you could give a go.
I mean, I've watched a lot of the Great British Baking Show or Bake Off or whatever they've called it now. And I am always like, to my wife, I'm like, look at that. You guys have like all the little like pies and stuff that are savory. We don't do that here stateside. In the Midwest in Chicago, when it's like 20 degrees or less Fahrenheit outside, you're like, that sounds good to me. I would like one of those, please and thank you.
Yeah, well, maybe we should get listeners to send in their
pound for pound pies.
Yeah, pound for pound pie. That's what we need. That's what we need.
Talking of which, I think what we need right now then is a break, and a very late one at that. We'll be back in just a moment to talk Team of the Year and FUT Centurions issues. Hello, and in this break, it is a new year, so it's a time for looking back and looking forward, and I wanted to say thank you very much for all your support again in 2022 and moving forward into 2023. The pod has now been running for, it's into its 8th calendar year, which is crazy, something I'd never thought would be possible. And frankly, it wouldn't have been possible without support from those supporters out there. So if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, I could potentially spare £3 a month for twice the podcast content and that giveaway actually at the moment as well, the 36,000 FIFA point giveaway, then as I always say, it's so greatly appreciated. You can keep the podcast going and get plenty in return too. It's really quick and easy to sign up. You can go to bit.ly/𝗵𝗡23 points. That's bit.ly/𝗵𝗡23 points, or just search support FUT Weekly. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and let's jump back into the podcast. Hello, welcome back after the break. So the Team of the Year nominees will be revealed today, but not quite yet at time of recording. Likely to be a few surprise inclusions. Who's going to be this year's 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦? Probably, what do we think, 𝗬𝘯𝘰𝗍𝘀 or someone like that?
Oh, mate, if he comes to United.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, especially after the goal for the Dutch or for Holland in the World Cup against Argentina.
Goal, It'd be a classic. Honestly, I couldn't be more excited about the fact that either 𝗵𝗽𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀 or 𝗬𝘯𝘰𝗀𝘀 could be signing for Manchester United. I mean,
man alive.
Actually, just moving on, there was questions over Team of the Year, impact on the market. I guess, Josh, you can probably handle that. I mean, it tends to cause a bit of panic, but ultimately, I guess it's kind of one of those things that everyone expects in a way. So
yeah, we've gone through phases with like Black Friday, where there was always like a market crash just before Black Friday, and then it became a thing where people were expecting the market crash. So you got the market crash before the market crash, and now it kind of just doesn't happen as much. And usually it's big things in games that we're not expecting that cause massive shifts in the market. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Team of the Year this year, because last year it was nowhere near as good as it had been in previous years in terms of the players that we were given weren't as good as they had been before. And if the same thing happens again, especially with it potentially being another 2-week promo again like it was last year, where we got a full week of them all being in packs, we may see a situation where the market impact is fairly similar to last year. So if you've got a player and you don't know whether they're going to go up or down, find a similar player last year, have a look at what happened. I do feel like they're giving us way more opportunity to stack packs. It feels like this whole season, and actually the Centurions promo being bad has kind of been an encouragement to go, stack some packs, like the 80 plus SBC that got released yesterday, where it's like silver players, but do it 100 times and we'll give you all of these fodder packs, and you've got 180 plus packs for Team of the Year. Even the season rewards, which is something I didn't talk about, but I'm really glad they changed, because it's always been a bugbear that they keep exactly the same season rewards. The fact that they've been given as like a hold these for Team of the Year, maybe we'll see a bigger market impact because more people will have more packs, but the probability is that they're just going to have a terrible drop weight, even worse than usual.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know. I know, Richard, do you have any particular kind of thoughts on whether they'll be strong enough to kind of have as big an impact as they previously had, because the players out at the moment are really, really good?
I think the only one last year that sort of got hard done by was 𝘵𝗪𝘀, if memory serves me correct. Like he was very good, but he weren't as good as what we expected, shall we say. The players that are released are going to be unbelievable. I think it's more, last year we sort of got like the honourable mention nominees we got loads of cards, if I'm not mistaken, like as well as the Team of the Year team. I would expect something like that again to get we can only have 11 Team of the Year players. So when the players who aren't out, who deserve it, especially after the World Cup that a lot of those players had, I think the nominees could be also very lucrative, shall we say. So I think there's going to be more opportunities.
Yeah, and Japes, we have to say, fair play to you. Yeah, I think they've made it not just a promo for the very wealthy or the very spendy FUT players. At least that's the impression I get.
Yeah, I mean, you can get packs so many different ways now. So I think the only thing is like everybody's saving packs now, right? Yeah. What's funny about the Centurions promo, I feel like it was mistimed. Doing it in the middle of the season felt weird to me. They could have made it an epic promo right before Team of the Year, or Team of the Season, excuse me, where it's like these players that have been club legends, the season's closing down, there's a bit of nostalgia, you give them epic boosts. The idea is good. It just ended up in throwaway promo time. So
yeah, I think it's one of the best sort of ideas for a promo that we've had in a long time. I just think the execution of it, even the fact that, look, it's all about 100 games, 100 goals, 100 assists. Why do then... I would have loved it if I played 100 games with 𝘭𝘰𝗍𝘏 in my club, I get a boost. If I get 100 goals, I get a +1 shooting, or just things to make these items better than they are.
Real talk, has there ever been a less hype promo that included Neymar?
Yeah.
Probably, generally, probably not. I don't think so.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, generally, when Neymar's in a promo, it's like, let's open some packs.
Yeah.
This should have been the promo to make people open the saved packs. So then you spend more for Team of the Year. But it's had the reverse effect. Like, people have been so much put off by the players in it and the real lack of entertainment and excitement in it that it's more people are saving than ever. Like, the amount of people
feels very numbers up from last year.
Yeah.
But without the boost that you're kind of that is the obvious thing to do. That it's such a great idea to give them boosts. Or Winter Wildcards, we saw so many cards given 99 stats. Like, have that and have the joke that it's a Centurions promo and every card gets 99 in something.
Yeah, I found it odd that they did those 99s with Winter Wildcards because it was kind of funky enough as it was because of the changes that they were making to players in terms of, a few positioning changes, the types of players they were using. I feel like that boost to 99 thing could have been applied to, as you say, something like this really well, especially as a lot of these players have lower pace. So some of them with 99 pace would be really fun. Although,
didn't Trent have hidden pace?
He did, yeah. When his face card stats at 86, despite him having 90 sprint speed and 90 acceleration.
Yeah, actually, while we're talking about it, is there anything else people want to add on FUT Centurions just before we wrap up? Any play you want to pick out? Because I think other than that, we're pretty much ready to wrap up. Actually, one thing I did want to say, if you want to vote for pound at FUT Weekly Pod on Twitter, the vote will be there this week. Anything else from anyone else?
I have a prediction for who won't be a nominee, and it's Cristiano Ronaldo.
I hope not.
You'd imagine not, but I bet he gets a cheeky team of the week or something. On that, we should say thank you very much to Japes. Great to have you back on for the first podcast that you've been on of 2023. Where can people catch that newsletter, which they should catch?
Right now, it's on my Twitter, but Elon has decided to shut down the software that I use, so it's going to be switching to Substack. I'll have to provide a direct link in the future. My Twitter, of course, is at AirJapes.
And we've also had Josh. Thank you very much for coming on this content podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been good to be on. I'm coming into like the fun part of the year with Team of the Year and League SBCs. Yeah. It's great. Spreadsheet FIFA on everywhere. Nice. So
yeah, check out plenty of League SBC related tips and things like that.
𝘂𝘬𝗏𝘬𝘓. That's all I'm saying. 𝘂𝘂𝗏𝘬𝘓. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Good little tip to end the pod. And finally, Richard, good to have you back on the pod. I don't think I said Happy New Year to you specifically, actually, to start. So yeah, Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Same to you. And you can find me on all social media at 𝘵𝘂𝘂𝘏𝑒𝑖𝑛98, and you can also catch the finals of the EA Sports Cup next Monday and Wednesday, which I will be featured on twitch.tv/EA Sports FIFA, if you want to see that.
Nice. Should be fun. And what else is fun? A 36,000 FIFA point giveaway going on the Patreon at the moment. If you're a supporter, get involved. If you're not yet a supporter, then it's a great time to support. Remember, you get an extra podcast every week. This week it'd be the content pod. Next week, gameplay. It's just £3 a month. It's super easy and convenient to join up. You can go to bit.ly/pod23points or just search support FUT Weekly. If you do consider it, then thank you very much. And if not, perhaps you consider subscribing via the various different podcast platforms so you can get this main feed podcast into your podcast providing app. If you're listening on YouTube, then drop a like, leave a comment. It really helps. And finally, a big thanks to all those supporters keeping the podcast going, including those icon patrons: Dave B, 𝘭𝘰𝘬𝘦, Coach Vass, DJ FIFA Player, Alan G, Alistair, Anthony R, Dominic P, Rob P, Jeff B, Stephen F, Tom B, Damon H, David S, Nick Jack M, Eric T, Neil P, Adam G, Dan W, Waterman, Jake G, Roger D, Springford, Alec, Bracco, Nishant, Harry P, Alex M, Lee A, Brendan W, Andrew C, Joe W, Timothy J, Dylan, Adam R, Sam K, Graham W, Andy, Ads H2K, and Brian V. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, 𝘭𝘰𝘬𝘦, Tom M, Darren W,